What's good, YouTube? Andre here with the DM Network. Y'all, if you're new to the channel, please lend me your subscriptions. We're trying to reach our goal of 10,000 subscribers, and that is not possible without your help. So if you're new to the channel, please hit the subscribe button. And if you've been watching the videos and haven't subscribed yet, take a moment to do that. We upload videos 7 days a week, every single day. So please turn on notifications also so you don't miss a video. And you can also follow us on Twitter at Dmgaming5, because I know YouTube is a little wonky sometimes with the notifications. Now on to the video. So in today's video, what I would like to talk about is what we don't want from this game. With the games that are currently out right now, with Dragon Ball FighterZ, with Dragon Ball Xenoverse, and now with Jump Force, starting to see a little bit of a pattern, especially with Jump Force and Xenoverse, that in my opinion is a bit scary to look at when it comes to this particular game that's coming out. Now, we know that the story is based off of the Dragon Ball Z series. It's said to tell the story of Dragon Ball Z, and we all know that Dragon Ball Z is the story of Goku. I'm not going to go into that right now, but I want to talk about what we don't want, because I'm starting to see somewhat of a pattern. And if this game ends up having create a character or an adventure mode aside from the main story mode, there is going to have to be a story for that. And what we've been seeing lately is kind of the same thing with FighterZ, Xenoverse, as well as Jump Force, is something evil takes over the bodies of the characters. Now, and people who want creative characters, y'all have to realize this. There has to be a story to go along with that. There has to be something to talk about and introduce as to why your creative character is in the game. Now, when you have a made up story, they can do anything. But when you have something like an anime, it's already set. The story is already there. So anything different, it's very limited to what you can do to introduce a creative character. Ultimate Tenkaichi did it in the sense that adventure mode was you were in a parallel universe. But here for the past couple of games, it's been, oh, somebody's taken over the heroes and it's your job to save them, blase, blase. So if there is an adventure mode, if there is a separate mode from the story, I would hope that it is something different than that. You know, I don't mind being in a parallel universe. I think Ultimate Tenkaichi did good with that. I just think the gameplay in Ultimate Tenkaichi was pretty lackluster, so that's why it hurt the way that it did. But, you know, don't use the same storyline that y'all use from Xenoverse, that they use from Dragon Ball Lines, they use from Dragon Ball Heroes, that they use from, you know, Dragon Ball FighterZ. Guys, and I think that's also why they're doing the story that they're doing, to kind of give us a break from these repeated storylines that they've been using in these other games. I personally don't want this to be a multiplayer game. We've never had a single, well, I ain't gonna say we've never had. We haven't had a single player Dragon Ball game in years. And I've said this in previous videos, but looking at the success of single player games, it would behoove them to, hey, let's make a single player Dragon Ball game. And I know people are going to be up in arms. No, I want to play with my friends, blah, blah. Hey, you've got Xenoverse for that. You've got Dragon Ball FighterZ for that. You've got Jump Force for that. You've got every game out there for that. It would be nice to make a game for single players, and you could appreciate that, because that gives them more development time. That gives them more time and resources to devote to making a good game, as opposed to having to make a game and then make it. Because essentially, when you have multiplayer in a game, you're almost making 2 games in one. You know, you look at the Naruto series, they had story mode, but then they also had, you know, multiplayer mode, which I know in the Naruto series, the online mode wasn't that hot from what I understand. But the reason why is because the game was never intended to be a multiplayer game. For the Naruto games, they wanted it to be more about the story and stuff like that. So yeah, it did suffer in some places, but that's because the game was never made to be a multiplayer game. It was really made for you to play the story of Naruto and stuff like that. And with CyberConnect 2 at the helm of this title, that kind of goes without saying that, you know, if they're gonna make a story, they're gonna make a good story, and that's the focal point. That's the buying point, the marketing point of this game. Um, so yet and still, we live in a society where multiplayer is rampant, and everybody wants to play with their friends online and things like that. So I really feel like they'll probably find a way to still put it in there. But multiplayer guys, don't feel alarmed when it's not what you think it's gonna be, because, like I said, CyberConnect 2, their main focus is on story of the game, not so much the multiplayer. Um, the multiplayer thing is a big deal to me because I see games like Madden, and you look at Mud. Those games have literally changed how companies structure their video games and things of that nature. You know, they don't even make games the same way anymore because of multiplayer and having to do things to fit the multiplayer crowd. You know, you look at games where multiplayer is present, and there's so many different patches. You know, we want different things in the game, like balance. We want Super Saiyan to be overpowered in the game, in a sense. We want transformations to mean something. If multiplayer is present in the game, there's a high chance that that won't happen. You look at Xenoverse, because Xenoverse is a multiplayer game, transformations are almost useless. Whereas in a game like Budokai, you know, if you transform to Super Saiyan 4, there was a noticeable change in your power level with that transformation. And you know, it goes without saying that, you know, multiplayer does change the structure of a game entirely. Whereas if it's a single player game, then you're open to a lot more things because people aren't going to complain about being super strong in a game, especially when you have different difficulty settings that, you know, for those who may want more of a challenge, they're open to and can get more of a challenge, where it's not the same way, you know, in a multiplayer game in a sense. But, you know, I'm really interested to see what they'll do with the game. I'm really interested to see what route they're going to go, if they're going to go with a single player route or a multiplayer route. And that will entail and raise or even lower expectations depending on the route that they go with that. You know, like I said, I feel like if they do multiplayer, then my expectations for the game are going to be lower. They're going to be lower. But if it's a single player based game, my expectations for the game are going to rise. They're going to rise exponentially because I know the potential that they would have in a single player game. Now, if they do decide to do multiplayer based game, I hope that the story is not co-op. I hope that if they do multiplayer, I would rather just a versus mode or something to that effect. I hope that the RPG, if it is open world element to the game, is single player, no multiplayer whatsoever, no co-op or anything, because then it is going to take away from the game. It has the potential to. And like I said, it just goes back to my previous point that multiplayer has the potential to take away from a game when it's not done right. And this game has been in development maybe 2 years. So it's not something like Grand Theft Auto or Red Dead Redemption that's in development for, multiple years, 5 to 6 to 8, almost 10 years, where they've had the time to actually put just as much detail and attention into the single player as they have the multiplayer. With something like this, like I said, it just takes up time and resources. What I also don't want in this game, I don't want them to hold back. I don't want them to hold back in this game. I want them to, most developers people are saying, well, they can't give you everything in one game because then what are they going to give you for a sequel or something to that effect? If the game does well enough, there's no need for a sequel. And if you set up the game to where, okay, I guess it becomes an online service at that point in a sense, where if you give us everything we want in this game, then the next game, hey, you could just improve on graphics. You can add new sagas and things like that and still keep everything else in the game that's already in the game. There's nothing wrong with that. And I would really like to see them take a chance in doing that because we've never had a Dragon Ball game that, in my opinion, is true to the Dragon Ball anime, especially in a sense of power levels and training. And the large reason for that is because you can't, most of the games are set up to be multiplayer games. And I always refer back to Dragon Ball Z, Legend of the Super Saiyan on Super Nintendo, because that was it was a turn-based RPG style game. However, your power level mattered in that game. I mean, if you had a high power level, when they attack you, it didn't do any damage because you were too strong. And so if you went around fighting Cybermen and building your power level, it paid off for you because you were stronger than your opponent and they couldn't hurt you. And it was just awesome in every single way. Whereas now, you know, power levels don't even matter because they're too busy trying to make games into fighting games. And I said it a long time ago, and I'll say it again. Dragon Ball Z Fighters was the best thing that could have happened for the Dragon Ball gaming franchise. Even if you're not a fan of fighting games, Dragon Ball Fighters was the best thing that can happen. And I said this a long time ago, and I'm going to try to find the video and put it at the end of this one. I'm going to try to find it. But I said that because and at the time I said Fighters was the best thing that happened because now they could make a true game that is true to the anime. And lo and behold, this game is coming out. Because before, Dragon Ball games had to not only try to live up to the anime, but they also had to try to live up to being a fighter, and that just isn't possible. You know, fighters are solely focused on fighters. But now that Dragon Ball FighterZ is out and is doing well, now that opens the door for them to say, hey, you know, we're going to give you a game that's, we're not concerned about the fighting. We want you to have a fun, true Dragon Ball experience. And now we have that, you see. So I want to know what you guys don't want to see in the game. Let me know down in the comment section down below. Appreciate y'all for watching. Till next time, peace.